Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Fall 2024 Investor Conference. My name is Ben Shamsian, Vice President at Lytham Partners. During this presentation and fireside chat, I'm excited to welcome PolyPid, ticker symbol PYPD, on the NASDAQ. Joining us today from the company is Dikla Axelbrod, Chief Executive Officer, and Ori Warshawski, Chief Operating Officer. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that management is available for one-on-one meetings throughout the conference. If you have not already signed up and would like to schedule a one-on-one meeting, please send me an email at shamsian@lythampartners.com. That's SHAMSIAN@lythampartners.com, or visit the conference website. With that, Dikla, I know we have a few slides you wanted to run through before we get into questions. So let me now turn it over to you, and when finished, we'll jump into questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome everyone. Very happy to be part of the conference and introduce you to PolyPid and our late stage asset. And maybe as a way of intro, I should say that PolyPid is now a late stage clinical biopharma company with a phase 3 with top line result coming up this within less than 6 months, this first quarter of next year, and an interim by the end of this year. PolyPid has developed a very unique platform technology that allows for prolonged local delivery with a pipeline that is now maturing into the stage of commercialization, and a younger program that is on track shortly after that. We have a very broad patent coverage around the platform technology and the pipeline product, with headquarters in Israel and in New Jersey. And as Ben said, our ticker is PYPD. And maybe before jumping into the data and the upcoming catalysator and the market opportunity, just a few words about what the magic is all about and how we are able to do something that was never done before. And our platform is working on utilizing two very well-established technologies in a way that was never peered. And this is polymer and lipids. And we are creating on a molecular level, a structure of thousands of alternate layers. Think about an onion or a book, where you have the polymer as the backbone of this matrix, and in between each layer, you have the drug surrounded by lipids. Once the drug is administered at the tumor site, at the infectious site, at the inflammatory site, gradually the outer layer disintegrates and the drug is released. And again and again and again, every few minutes, a new layer is disintegrated and the drug is released, supporting weeks and months of local administration of the drug. And by pairing this initially with doxycycline from the tetracycline family, we are able to prevent surgical site infection for a period that goes for 30 days. We are now in the last steps, or the last stage of a phase 3 pivotal studies, after performing several phase 2 studies, as well as an earlier phase 3. And I'm happy to share with you today some of the data on this phase 3, as well as the upcoming study that we expect to be able to present first quarter of this year. Before jumping into the study and the product and the application, just a really quick overview on the potential market opportunity of a product that show prevention of surgical site infection in the level that we have been showing up until now, more than 50% reduction in surgical site infection. And obviously, many surgeries and many situations have some level of infection. But when we are analyzing the target market opportunity in the US, we're really looking on those surgeries that have relatively high prevalence of surgical site infection, or that once infection occur, the mortality and disability, as well as surgical complication of it are ones that requires additional protection. And this is really what we are bringing. We are bringing additional protection that we are hoping will get surgical site infection closer to zero. And we're talking about 12 million operations in the US alone. And how actually the surgeon is going to be using this extra protection? What does it mean that it's localized? You can see here a very short video clip that is taken from one of our phase 2 patients. What you'll see here are the last few steps of a CABG surgery. You can see the sternum bone. And just before the surgeon closes the incision, they reconstitute the drug, applied all over the incision, whether this is like here in a CABG surgery, the sternum bone and the soft tissue above it, or it's the abdominal wall. And the surgeon is now taking out the gas pad that is protecting the heart, closing the incision. And from this second, this patient has 30 days of local coverage of antibiotics. Now, the 30 days is very important because in many of the surgery, the CDC defines surgical site infection as infection that occurs within 30 days from the surgery. But equally important, because of the way we are presenting the drug to the site, we are creating significantly higher local exposure to the antibiotic, a substantially higher local concentration with minimal to no systemic exposure. When we look at local PK studies that we've performed along the years that we are developing the drug, you can see up to 10 times higher the minimal inhibitory concentration needed in order to kill the bacteria with this approach. And this is really what's get us to the result that we've seen both in phase 2 and phase 3. Our initial phase 3 that was performed during the COVID days was in open colorectal resection. Choosing colorectal resection as the model for NDA is quite intuitive when you think about it, where you have a surgical approach, or you have a surgery that involves the colon. The risk for infection, dealing with the guts, dealing with the colon is not just from the outer, is in the inner. And we are looking in this situation on infection rate that are at the level of high single digit to low double digit. Primary endpoint was to show reduction of infection, mortality, and reintervention in an open colorectal research in 60 centers in the US, EU, and Israel. Very large study that was conducted during the years of COVID. And I'm mentioning that because in retrospect, infection rate during those years were lower than historically reported, and this influences some of the data. But when looking at the pre-specified subgroup analysis, the one pre-specified subgroup analysis that the FDA asked us to perform, you can see 54% reduction in the primary endpoint with a p-value of 0.0032. So very robust reduction, both in the surgical site infection as well as in the mortality, 40% reduction in the mortality, and 55% reduction in the reoperation, reintervention. And with this data that was submitted to the FDA about a year and a half ago, the FDA accepted it as a supportive data in addition to our phase 2 data, and suggested that we take an ongoing study called SHIELD 2 and focus it on this patient population, which we have started to do about a year and a half ago. Now, with over 400 patients already in the study, very close to the unblinded interim analysis that is expected by the end of this quarter, and following with top-line result on the first quarter of this year. This study is very similar to the first one in terms of the primary endpoint of surgical site infection, mortality, and reintervention. It is de-risked, though, in the sense that it's more focused on the patient population that showed very robust data, and it is statistically planned based on real data that we've saw during the COVID years. So even if infection rate stays the same as they were during those more robust hygiene years, we should have a win here. And if infection rate even goes slightly higher, this will take us into the lower end of the study. This study, as I said before, have an interim analysis that is expected by the end of the year. The interim analysis can suggest stop the study for efficacy, can send us to the 600 patient, or can allow for an upscale of the study. And this is all being planned for at these days. Just to give a sense before we go into the question part, Ben, about the market opportunity and how we're looking at the market and what is the market. So I've mentioned before that we're looking at, in the US, on 12 surgeries that are major surgeries, which are our market opportunity. In Europe, we're talking about 8 million operation and the same level of complexity. And we believe that the initial market opportunity will be in the abdominal space, where we have the study, where we're talking about 7 million operation. And out of these that are the first market opportunity, many are what you would refer to as higher risk surgeries that are performed in the hospital setting. And following on that, we expect to expand into other indication on other surgeries as well. The market access will be supported with several market drivers. So obviously, there is the aspect of the cost. Surgical site infection today costs the hospital in average $25,000, and this is out-of-pocket expenses for the hospital. The hospital is getting a lump sum on the surgery. So if a patient has infection, they are in many cases lose money on this patient. And this is just the direct cost. There are also the indirect cost, which are penalties. Some of the CMC programs are enforcing penalties of between 1 to 3% on the lower quarter of the hospital. And surgical site infection is a major contribution to those quality measurement. And also, in addition to the direct cost and the indirect cost, there are the aspects that are less quantitative, and those are the reputation part. And these are all public information in the US. When you want to see a specific hospital and rate, I can tell you that not too long ago, we did a KOL event with some surgeon as well as quality, head of quality in one of the major hospitals. And they mentioned that infection rate in the surgery are being investigated at the level of the head of surgery department in their hospital. I'm even quoting, he said it's like being called to the principal office. And these are all coming from the direct cost, the indirect cost, and the reputational. Another major driver for our program is the ENTA program. D-PLEX 100 is eligible for the ENTA program, the new technology add-on program. So although the product is expected to have to be cost-effective, for the hospital will also have up to 75% reimbursement in the first few years of launch on the basis of having the QIDP designation, the Qualified Infectious Disease designation, that the product has 3 different QIDP designation, an important recognition from the FDA, in addition to the recognition that we received of having a breakthrough therapy designation that also support a fast track for approval, a faster track for approval. Our go-to-market strategy is to partner on this product and then invest in our other pipeline product. The first partnership that was signed is in Europe with Advanced Pharma, which is a Nordic capital-backed company that licensed the product in Europe for abdominal and cardiac surgery. We're very happy with this collaboration that has been maintained for the last few years because of the focus. Advanced are focusing solely on Europe, solely on hospital-based product, and this is exactly the kind of partner that we should expect to see. We have development-related milestone of up to $25 million. Overall, upfront and milestone payment of 115, milestone payment, transfer price, pre-agreed transfer price, as well as minimum sales commitment and royalties that are starting at the 20s. And before we open the call, I would also mention that we, as part of our strategy to get the product all the way to the market, to make the investment that will lead the product to the market, we also have our own state-of-the-art manufacturing facility supporting those licensing deal and the pipeline product. We're very proud of this facility because of the uniqueness of the manufacturing of our platform and our Finland program. This facility will take us for the first 4 to 5 years of commercial sale, and we are also already looking at the planning for the expansion of this facility. Then I would just maybe before again going to the question part, mention that ahead of us is interim data coming this quarter, top line on the first quarter of 2025. During the last few months, we've done financing raising $27 million from new life science focused investor. This cash will take us through the interim analysis and with some milestone payment that are embedded in the warrants will take us to the top line and later on to NDA submission. Thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you for that presentation. We wanted to start with the SHIELD 2 phase 3 trial. What is the timeline for the interim and top line results, and how confident are you in its success?
So the timelines, we've recently announced that we've recruited the last patient for the interim analysis, 430 patients, and the interim is expected during this quarter, during the fourth quarter, with top line at the first quarter of next year. We are quite confident at this stage because some of the unknown are around the recruitment. Now that all patients are recruited, we have better visibility on the timeline. And with regards to confidence, this is a phase 3. This is obviously very exciting for us, but I can tell you that we've done a couple of things that we view as de-risking for the study compared to the previous SHIELD 1. And those are really coming from the thinking that this study has to be successful with the aims that we have, with spending more than 10 years on the platform and the pipeline product. We need to show that it's working at this stage. And the way to increase the success rate was by doing a couple of things. First, to focus the patient population on the patient population that showed high efficacy, the ones with more complex surgeries. Second was to design the study based on real data that we saw in SHIELD 1. The baseline is based on data that we actually saw in SHIELD 1, as well as enhance our clinical operation team and implement a lot of lessons learned. After performing a phase 3 of hundreds of patients, you have a lot of lessons learned.
Okay. Can you talk about the market opportunity, the expected market opportunity for D-PLEX?
Yeah, I can take that one. So we are looking, so we went through really almost line by line, all the relevant surgeries in the US that are relevant to D-plex, and we divide them into two buckets. One, surgeries that have high infection rates, like abdominal surgeries, like some of the gynecology-related surgeries, hysterectomies, and so on. This is one bucket. And the other bucket, which is about half the opportunity, are surgeries that maybe infection rate is not as high, but if there is an infection, the consequence is really horrible. For example, if there's an infection in an open heart surgery, there's a 40% chance of mortality. If there's an infection in a joint replacement, patient can be in the hospital or going in and out of the hospital for weeks and weeks, going through multiple surgeries to clean the infection, which obviously translates from patient outcomes and from cost. So taking all these surgeries are about 12 million surgeries in the US. Out of that, the initial pool is about 4 million surgeries. The parallel to this in Europe is another pool of 8 million surgeries. Out of them, about 3 that are abdominal. And again, our trial and our regulatory approach is looking both aligning the US and the European requirements. So we will be able to use the same data to apply in both territories. So all in all, 12 million surgeries in the US. Pricing wise, we're looking into between $400 to $600 per vial, and the dosing is by length of incision. So any open surgery is between $2 to $3 vials per surgery. So $800 to $1,800 per surgery.
Okay, that's looks like a large opportunity for you. What can you speak about the commercial strategy here as we go
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah. So and Dikla mentioned this a little bit. We are looking for partners just like the partners that we have in Europe, just like Advanced Pharma. We're looking for partners in different markets, focusing on the obviously US as the starting point, but also some of the other larger markets like Brazil, like China, like Japan. And in each of these markets, we're looking for a partner that knows how to sell in the hospital. So a partner that knows how to get product into the formulary, that already already is in the hospital, ideally already calls on surgeons and has this special capability to know how to sell into the hospital. We are in discussions with a number of potential partners already, and I assume once we have the data coming out, we'll see kind of an uptick in this conversation, and we'll be able to announce something in a few months after the surgery. So we're looking for a partner. The key message, there are basically two key messages. One is from a clinical and patient outcome. A patient comes in, leaves the hospital without an infection. That's the good outcome. On the other side, the pharmacoeconomics and the access, we actually, by reducing infection, we are saving money to the hospital. So there's an incentive, an economic incentive to the hospital to add this product, improve the quality in the hospital, reduce the infections, and by that improving the margins of the hospital. So two levers that will pull, the economic one and the clinical one.
Okay, and it sounds like you have a lot that's on the horizon over the next 6 to 9 months. Can you just summarize some of the milestones and inflection points that investors can expect?
Sure. So I already just touched a few of them, but if I organize them in a chronological way. So the first thing that you should expect is the interim data by the end of the year, then followed by interim top-line data on the first quarter. In parallel to that, we would expect to see deals on commercializing of D-plex, as well as progress on our pipeline product, whether with collaboration or by our own. Again, looking a bit farther into the next year, but these are really the top things that we are working on now and expect to see in the next, let's say, half a year to a year.
All right. looks like we're out of time. Thank you very much for your time today. Certainly found the information very helpful, and I believe our audience as well will find it. Before we wrap up, two quick reminders to anyone out there who's not already signed up for a one-on-one. Again, please send me an email at shamsian@lythampartners.com, shamsian@lythampartners.com. And lastly, we have a number of additional webcasted fire chats coming up here. Please visit the conference homepage to see the roster. With that, Dikla, Ori, thank you once again. We hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.